My name is Kentrell Johnson, a junior criminal justice major attending Fort Valley State University. I'm presenting my research proposal on racial disparity, specifically the unequal treatment African American children who are reported missing face from law enforcement when compared to the treatment white Americans face who are also reported missing.
You may have heard popular news stories of white American children reported missing. This is Jamie Kloss, a 15-year-old who was kidnapped in 2018 just before her parents were found murdered. Although she was immediately ruled out as suspect, she remained missing. Nevertheless, Jamie Kloss returned home and the man responsible for her kidnapping was convicted. Meet Ariana Fitz, who is widely unknown. She was 2 years old when she was kidnapped in 2016 before her mother was found murdered. Her case received little media coverage, which resulted in Ariana Fitz remaining missing, even today. Which brings me to these two questions. Are African American children who are reported missing less likely to receive media coverage than white American children? And two, why are African American children who are reported missing oftentimes forgotten? Racial and gender disparities compared between African American and white American children reported missing by Kentrell Johnson. In 2017, law enforcement agencies in the U.S. reported 464,324 children missing in various ways, such as abduction and wandering off. A majority of these missing child cases, media coverage and law enforcement assistance are the most effective tools to utilize when attempting to find a missing child. Media coverage not only enables law enforcement to search for a missing child, it also enables members of the community to search as well. Many African American children who are abducted and reported missing are oftentimes categorized as runaways, making law enforcement less likely to search thoroughly for the child, if law enforcement searches at all. Although African American children make up 14% of the U.S.'s population, they reserve 39% of all children in America who are reported missing, which is 20% more than white American children total percentage, which also includes data from Hispanic Americans who were reported missing. While reviewing research for my literature review, I thought of 4 questions that could be effective in this type of research study. My first question is, does media coverage heighten or lessen the recovery rate of missing children? The second question is, does missing African American children receive equal media coverage than missing white American children? By media coverage, I mean local news channels, news articles, and maybe even news magazines. The third question is, what portion of the white American missing children are represented by Hispanic children? When analyzing statistical data, Hispanic American and white American children are grouped together, making the number of missing white American children much higher than the actual number. And the fourth and final question is, are African American missing children less likely to be recovered in comparison to white American children? Relevant literature reviews suggest that the conflict theories of crime and behavior of law theories, which states the way a police officer responds to a suspect is based on many things irrelevant to the crime at hand, such as race and gender, which is the reason many African American children are left undiscovered. To further elaborate, the amount of law assistance a person received is determined based on their status in society, which results in many minorities receiving less positive reactions from law enforcement. The research that needs to be conducted in this study to answer the research questions can be conducted through the use of a questionnaire from all participants. In addition to the questionnaire, an interview from the participants who elect to further elaborate on their questionnaire will be conducted. This research will determine whether or not African American children are reported missing more frequently, receive unparalleled levels of media coverage, and are less likely to be found once reported missing. The interview will be conducted at a police department that is closest to the individual participant's home, as long as the station is located in Atlanta, Macon, or Chamblee. The questions included in the survey will be used to investigate how effective law enforcement handled the case when the participant's child went missing. The interview questions will investigate the specific degree of law enforcement actions. For example, if the participant indicated in their survey that law enforcement were effective, then during the interview, the participant is given time to explain specifically and thoroughly how effective, or in other cases, how ineffective law enforcement were during the time their child was reported missing. The participants in the study will be the parents of the children who were reported missing. The questionnaire will be conducted at a police station in Atlanta, Macon, and Chambly. And once the participant finishes, they will be asked if they desire to participate in an additional interview to elaborate on their answers from the questionnaire. In addition to this, they will be ensured that their identity will remain concealed and their voice disguised. However, their child's race, age, recovery, and the amount of media coverage they receive will be collected for research. Once collected, all data from the questionnaire will be compared between the races and age groups. The purpose of the interviews is to aid in determining how effective or how ineffective law enforcement handled reported missing child cases, and to discover if the family received maximum, minimum, or no media coverage. The research done for this study will be a mixed methods approach. There will be both qualitative and quantitative methods used. The questionnaire will be conducted as structured and will be a quantitative approach. The interview, however, will be conducted as semi-structured and will be more of a qualitative approach. The interview will feature some of the questions from the questionnaire, but depending on the participant's answer, the interview has many possible different outcomes. The participants are allowed to be in pairs, but it can be no more than 2 supporting each child reported missing. The ages of participants are not important because the research only requires the age of their child when they were reported missing. As long as their child ranged from 0 to 17 years old when they were reported missing, they are relevant to this study. The study needs 615 participants in all, which will be a collective of 205 African American families, 205 Hispanic American families, and 205 white American families. The primary focus group of participants are African American and white American. However, Hispanic Americans are also important in this research because they are counted collectively with white American children who are reported missing. The participants in this research will be selected from public police records of children who were reported missing within the last year in the city of Atlanta, Macon, and Chambly. All families who are indicated in the records will be collected and random families will be offered to participate in the study. If the parents elect to participate, the family will receive an incentive pay for their contribution. The interviews will also be conducted in police stations in Atlanta, Macon, and Chambly, where each location has an interviewer on site to collect the questionnaire from the participants once they are complete. The interviewer will ask the participant if they also wish to participate in an interview where their identity and voice will remain hidden. Once each participant completes the data they wish to contribute to the study, their work is complete and they are free to go. The instrumentation used for this research will prove to be reliable if majority white American parents or guardians who participated in the questionnaire and interview claim to have received maximum media coverage and effective assistance for law enforcement. On the other hand, of proving the reliability of the instrumentation used in the research, majority African American participants will claim to have received minimum or no media coverage for their missing child, and law enforcement were not extremely effective. Or, if the African Americans who participated in the interviews claim law enforcement categorized their child as a runaway when they were reported missing. The interviews and questionnaire will be given over the course of 2 weeks, and the single parent or pair of parents can arrive at the location at any time within the period to complete either portion. The survey will consist of 10 questions, and all participants will have no more than 5 hours to complete, and the interview will range from 25 to 30 minutes. This is the actual questionnaire that is initially given to all participants upon arriving at the police station. During the interview, the participants who elected to participate are asked to be specific about their survey answers. Take a look at question number 2, for example. It asks if the police officer shows sympathy to the family when they reported their child missing. If the participant's answer is negative, such as disagree, the interview allows them to explain what emotion the police officer showed towards them, if not sympathy. Each research question will be examined at the end of the 2-week period to be answered using the answers from the questionnaire, which will be analyzed and compared by age and race of the missing child and if the child was recovered. The researchers will work together dealing with the interviews and questionnaires they personally conducted to extract the data they need and compare the answers to search for consistency throughout the data. Ultimately, if there is a high level of consistency, then the conclusion taken from the research is reliable. If majority white Americans receive maximum level of media coverage and receive effective assistance from law enforcement, which results in their child being searched for and recovered, then that will be a reliable conclusion to the research. In this research, the Hispanic American population served a specific purpose of providing an idea of how many Hispanics could potentially be represented within the white American reported missing children population. If majority African Americans in the study agree that they have received the minimum level of media coverage, if any, and have received ineffective assistance from law enforcement, which results in law enforcement never launching a search and ultimately never recovering the African American child, then that will be a reliable conclusion to the research as well.
To conclude my research proposal, I feel like there is more research that ultimately needs to be conducted to thoroughly know if white American children receive more media coverage and effective law enforcement services than black American children. Researchers should also further research concerning this problem because without the research, America is unaware that African American children all over the world disappear extremely often and they do not receive the media coverage and effective police services necessary to recover them, and ultimately they remain missing.